And we are live.
Yes, live we are.
Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to Ellen at Blackfilm. I'm your host, Ellen Wingero, and I'm joined by my co-host, Hakeem Graham. Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. It's a long week. I'm looking for a couple of days off, so hopefully this will be great.
Yeah. So today we're doing a recap of episode 3 from the new HBO series I May Destroy You, written and created by Michaela Cole. And the title of the episode is Don't Forget the Sea. So I don't even know where to start. Episode 3 provided quite a bit of clarity for me, and I'm sure others. And it takes place 3 months earlier from where episode 1 and 2 left off. And Arabella is in Ostia, Italy, on an all expense paid writing work trip, courtesy of her publishing company. Right. It was a gorgeous city. The visuals were beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Her best friend Terry meets her out there, and they, make the most of their time together, which turns out to be fun yet alarming. Very alarming. Just as a woman watching how episode 3 played out, yeah, I was a little struck by it all.
Well, I would say I could see how some people would say it was alarming. I just think they were just young women having fun. Um, Although I've never seen that much fun had in one single incident. I mean, they were really going for it. I mean, um,
Yeah.
yeah, interesting, very interesting.
The word interesting is going to come up a lot today.
Yeah, because I was like, wow, you go hard in the paint.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever gone anywhere close to that hard in the paint. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So Terry lands, right? The setup is quite clear, like how things are going to play out once Terry lands. You get the picture of what's about to pop off, right? They link up, they smoke and get super high and roam around the city in like this kooky, high state of mind, which was pretty funny to watch them walking around Italy, Ostia, being high. Like everything just seemed super intensified. They end up at a restaurant, and the waitress recognizes that they're on something and suggests that they meet up later at a basketball court where they can find better weed, right? So it's at the basketball court that Arabella meets Biagio. Biagio is the boyfriend that was referenced, that we saw in episode 1 and referenced throughout 1 and 2. But what I thought was interesting is that he turned out to be the supplier, right?
Right, he's a supplier, but it's funny. He's a supplier, and he also has a code of ethics, which is really,
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't really not mutually exclusive. But it was interesting to find that out. On the other end of that, Terry, she went loose. Like she was like having really fun. She was living her best life. I mean, she
Well,
was.
yeah, we'll get to that. Let's unravel this the way it plays out in the
Okay.
episode.
Okay.
I was pleasantly surprised. So you bring up a good point. Biagio's, what he does versus his code of ethics. I think that made his character, it's a contradicting character, but I think that's what makes it complex and interesting, because you don't know whether to like him or to dislike him, which I thought was kind of cool, right? I guess we get to see how that plays out in the rest of the series. So, what do you think? What's your take on who he might end up being?
I think he's a cool guy. I think it's an occupation, right? You have people who are exotic dancers, and they go to college at night or got to go to college in the daytime. I mean,
Okay,
they're just supplying, a needed sort of
right.
avenue for themselves to go forth in their life. Now, for instance, he's also friends with the waitress's brother, which was interesting. Because
Right, best friends, yeah.
right, so that whole thing. I don't know how that works out. So adversely, he could have been just pulled into the business just because he needed it, and he was a good guy. Ergo, why
Mm,
Arabella is probably very attracted to him because there's a little danger with it, but also he's a little bit of a nice guy. And I think
Yeah.
everybody loves that duality with people, right? I want a bad boy, but with good manners. I don't understand it myself, but hey,
That's a struggle, right?
yeah,
But we want what we want, damn it.
hey.
Yeah. But I thought his response to her asking for his number in case she wants to pick up some more was very revealing. If you remember, he says to her, "You have more than enough," right? Which is not it's not the traditional dealer
Right.
response. Oh, you know, oftentimes dealers are just about making money. So yeah, take my number if you want more. I'll be available to you. But he shut that down instantly, which I thought was interesting.
That code of ethics, like I said,
Yes. Yeah.
see the progression going on there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was at that point that I started to feel like, huh, okay. I'm curious to see, you know, who this guy is because I like him, but I don't trust him. So,
Well,
uh,
yeah, there's
yeah,
that.
right. So Arabella and Terry, they go out to a club that night and they pop some Molly right before walking in. So wait, let me go back a little bit because initially the whole purpose of them meeting up was just to get weed, but they end up getting other stuff, right? They got like what, Coke and Molly and I think something else I don't remember.
They got a
Uh,
they got a smorgasbord full of
yes.
things.
Yes. So we know how this night is going to play out. So before they walk into the club, they each pop a tab.
Yeah,
And so,
we call
go
that
ahead.
pre-gaming. We call that pre-gaming.
Right, exactly. Right. That's their pregame. But usually we're pre-gaming at home a couple hours before we go out, but they pre-game the minute they, you know, got to the club so that high could kick in at the right time, right?
And it sure did. Mm.
And it did. And so that was what was so cool about that scene because we got to see when the high kicks in, or rather when they started rolling. Which by the way, I thought was acted incredibly well because it to me it felt like they really popped a tab and were really high and we were privy to that. I mean, that's how well Terry and Arabella played that scene out.
Yeah, I felt like a voyeur. I was
Yeah.
like, I was like, wow, because that was almost real. And so since it's really a story about her life, I'm like, oh, okay, girl, I see you.
Was that how it went down? Maybe not. Maybe that's part of the fiction. The fiction part, who knows?
Exactly. And I'm like, wow, you tough.
You got it in.
Yeah.
No, this is judgment-free zone, but you got it in. But so this is when the fun starts, but it's also when we kind of get a glimpse of Arabella's, and I'm leery about using the word addiction, but this is when we get a glimpse of her addiction to the high, right? Because she's supposed to get drinks for her and Terry while Terry's waiting in their area where they're seated, but she kept ending up in the bathroom where she would do lines of coke, one after the other, one after the other, and I think she went back and forth to the bathroom maybe like 3 times to do lines.
Yeah, and then she and one of the trips back from the bathroom, she got something else from one of the party goers. So we don't even
Yeah,
know what that was. So
that was Molly. She got another Molly from some random chicks in the bathroom.
see, my problem with that is you don't know them.
Right. You
You're not
know
sure
what it's
who it is.
laced with?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So I think she's very, very, very free. I'll say it that way. But also I think she's irresponsible because she was actually there to work.
Right.
And that's where I'm lost because I'm like, how is that working for you? I mean, I understand the creative side of it and I understand where she's trying to go with it, but that's just a little bit. You're being disingenuous with yourself because again, that's precarious. You don't know where those girls are from and what their intentions are.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the first time well, maybe not the first time, but I think that's when it solidified her self-destructive behavior, right? Because that's what it is to me, right? Because just to take some random something from somebody you don't know in a country in a new like that's wild to me, but people do it,
Well,
right?
I can understand it because one, you're in another country. It's not your country. You figure you're gonna, live your life however you want because you can reinvent yourself for that small amount of time.
Right.
Um, However, you want to be mindful of the fact that you are there alone, you too, and you are females, and there's a lot of men around watching. Not that is indicative of things happening. Is just there's a possibility, and you
Yeah.
should be mindful of that. And at least somebody should be watching. Both can't.
Yeah. I mean, within a few hours, she's popped 2 Mollies and done several lines of coke. So,
And the marijuana before.
and right. So that just lets you know where her head is at, or rather where it's not, right?
Bingo. Bingo.
So we gradually see the loss of control that comes with all of that, right? So while it all seems fun, it's also extremely risky, like we just talked about. So she forgets that Terry is waiting for her. She tries to get on stage to dance and gets yanked off by security twice. She's dancing super provocatively. I mean, you know, she's visibly out of it. Like she needs, at this point, to me, she needs help, right? But probably in Arabella's mind, she's having the time of her life. Like she feels no pain.
Yeah, she's floating. She's flying right now. She's in that dreamland. She's flying. She's flying. Which is again one of those things where, if you look at it from her standpoint, African young lady from the UK, she's on her own. She's got an expense account. She's staying at a great hotel, eating great food in a great city with a lot of life and a lot of parties. She's living it up. Almost too much. You having too much fun?
Yeah, just a bit. Just a bit. Like scale it back, a notch or two. So Terry, frustrated, obviously, because her girl just kind of left her hanging alone. She tells her that she's leaving. She finally finds Arabella, or they find each other, and Terry just has her bag and her coat in her hand, and she's just like, "Peace, I'm out," and leaves Arabella there, which I thought was insane. Like, why would she leave her there?
Yeah, what happened to girl code?
Right, exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth, Hawk. What happened to girl code? Right? So I think that's the first time I'm realizing that, wait, well, how close is she to Arabella? Like, because who does that? That's supposed to be your best friend.
Well, remember that there's the drug portion of that, so nobody's really thinking clearly.
Well.
So.
Okay.
So everybody's got their own agenda going on, and Terry arrives there a lot later than Arabella, so she's trying to catch up. She's like, "Oh, I'm 2 days behind. Let me catch up real quick."
Well, we're assuming that Arabella was already like in a drug-induced haze. Like I don't know that because when Terry initially pulled out the weed, like Arabella was so happy. I kind of got the vibe that she hadn't been doing anything, and so Terry's arrival kind of created the atmosphere for that. I could be wrong.
No, you're correct. What I'm saying is she's been there already, just in that lively atmosphere, the great hotel, having a great time on the expense of the publisher. And I think Terry was like, "Well, look, so I got here a little later.
I'm ready to go popping." Right. Okay.
Yeah, let me get it popping too. So it's like, I think she just jumped out the window on that one. So they both just had a good time. I mean, and remember, they actually cooked the marijuana in their food. So when it goes into your intestines, that's right. That was
such a great scene, by the way. Them tearing up that food. I mean, they were licking plates and just
exactly. It was a clean plate again. I was like, oh, okay.
Like nothing was ever on it. That was a great scene.
Yeah, that was. I was like, that's realistic. That was realistic.
Yeah, there were actually quite a bit of realistic scenes in this episode. So it made it relatable, even though I've never been through anything like that. I felt like, okay, I believe that, all of it.
Yes, and I think she's good at doing that.
Yes,
obviously because it's happened to her. But I think a little bit of it's probably some self-experience that she just pulled back from a memory, because clearly it is written by her and it's her child, her brainchild. But wow, that's a little intense, and I think that's probably the shift in her doing the film. I think that's therapy for her. It's kind of cool.
Agreed. So Terry chunks up the deuces. Arabella doesn't really understand what's happening, and she continues, or rather starts to look for Terry.
Yeah.
After Terry told her that she's leaving.
She was like, "Where did my girl go?"
Right, which again speaks to how out of it she was, right? So it's in that moment as Arabella's looking for Terry that as the camera spans the room, we see Biagio there. He's in the club.
And he had been watching for a while.
And we see him watch her.
Mm-hmm.
Right? which was weird. But first of all, he was supposed to be at whatever party that they were having that the girls decided not to go to. So why he ended up at this particular club, I'm not sure.
Again, I think it plays to that bad guy, good guy thing in him. I'm seriously thinking that for right now.
Yeah, right. I'm not sure. So meanwhile, Terry finds a whole other party scene. She meets a guy and then another guy, and then both men don't seem bothered by each other's presence, but more on that later. But that scene was interesting. I don't know if you caught as Terry was walking like past that cafe that those two guys were chopping it up.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I had to go back to that once just to make sure once what happened later on.
Yeah, I wasn't sure exactly what their thing is, because I know that, and I know friends from Italy who used to tell me they love when like Americans or people from other countries come there, because they stake them out and they rob them or something like that. Not that they do that in every place in Italy. I'm just saying some places, but that's every country. So my thought initially was, oh, you alone, you looking at your phone.
I thought something bad was going to happen.
Me too. And then you're watching GPS and it's in English. Oh,
Jesus Christ. Yeah. My heart was pounding in that moment.
Yeah. So I was like, maybe she just want to like play that off and maybe put the phone away and kind of listen to it from her ear pods or something like that.
Like, be alert. Like, be alert.
Well, then there's the drug and stupor. So there's that too.
It's a lot. It's a lot going on here. So the club where Arabella is eventually closes, right? And she's standing outside still waiting for Terry to come out, right? And Biagio is standing outside with her.
Right.
Until they realize that Terry is not inside once the club doors close.
And then they start their trek, right? Back to her.
Yeah. But before they trek, right, what was scary and concerning about this particular scene was seeing how not in control Arabella was, right? As she stood outside with Biagio, she's stumbling, she's incoherent, she has on a super short dress, high heels, she's falling on the ground. I mean, this is a recipe for disaster waiting to happen.
Well, yes, it is. So it just lends credit to the outrageousness and out of control she has going on. Again, maybe that's playing to her artistic abilities as a writer, but I don't think she has a good grip on reality in that sense, because as we saw from the previous episode, she kind of fell short on her writing assignment. So I can imagine that it's going to be interesting on how they play this out going forward, because I think she's way out of control. And I wonder if Baragis was going to kind of pull in the reins, because he's clearly going to be her supplier. Well, at least when she's in Italy.
Right. And who knows? He might be making a cameo in London at some point. I see that happening.
I see that happening.
Right. And so, if Biagio wasn't there sort of helping her from a distance, God only knows what could have happened to her. I mean, she dropped her house keys, didn't know it. She dropped her phone and didn't know it. Biagio, as he's walking behind her, is picking up things that she's dropping, but she's so not present in those moments that she could have gotten home and then realized that she didn't have those two things and never known what happened.
Well, kind of like how the series started, right?
Exactly. That was a great way to tie in the fact that she didn't know what happened the following morning in the first episode. Right on.
Right. And well, there's a couple of things that happen. He's picking up those items. She goes to the bathroom in the street. She's like, don't you dare turn around.
Right.
And I was like,
wow. Yeah, you gotta go, Hawk.
Hey, you talking to a pro. Right. And why? Right. I know, I understand, but I've only seen that happen with women 3 times, and I'm always surprised every time I see it. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. Right. And she wasn't trying to hide it. Like, it's just,
no,
this is a spot. I'm just gonna go right here.
And turn around.
Right. Right. Right.
I was like, hey, you know what though? It's actually liberating for me. So you know, the funny thing about it was, I had a conversation with a close friend of mine, and she used to say to me, well, how come you guys can just do that and we can't? And I said, that's a good question. And which goes back to her writing, her acting. She's very liberating, and everything she does.
She is. She is. And you know, really quickly about that scene, right? I can see how a man with ill intentions can see that and think that it's an invitation. So is the onus on the woman to be on point or on the man to not think that way or both?
Okay, fair enough. And I thought the same thing myself, but I was just like, I didn't know how to think. As a male, I'm like, how do I take that?
Yeah.
I don't know how to take that. So in my case, I would err on the side of caution always.
And
Like,
just yeah, yeah.
keep status quo.
Oof.
I'm not no punk though. Don't get it twisted. Because if she says anything else coming close to that, then we can,
Oh,
anytime.
you're funny. You know, as a woman, it's like you want the freedom to do you, but sometimes doing you can come at a cost.
Right, and that's for men and women. It's not just women,
Right.
men and women. But again, it's the liberating her idea of liberation
Yeah.
in her films and in this particular character, Arabella, that she's who she is, and that's kind of cool. Maybe she's a little too far, but that's remained to be seen. We don't know if she can pull it back yet. We don't know if she has the right surroundings, Biagio,
Yeah.
Terry, her other friends, Kwame. We don't know who's going to pull in the reins or just have that conversation with her. But I hope that we see that soon because this is
Yeah.
scary.
I think we will. So Biagio follows Arabella home. They finally make it. And the minute she gets home, she makes a beeline for Terry's room, only to find Terry in there having a whole threesome with the two guys from before.
Which I thought was their plan to begin with. After I saw that they were
Oh,
not going to.
absolutely, absolutely. And so that comes into it plays itself out when Terry is staring out the window and she's watching them walk away together. That's when she has this contemplative look on her face, and that's when it hits her like, oh crap, this was not a spontaneous thing that planned by me. This was orchestrated by these two men.
Well,
And so I couldn't tell whether the look on her face was like, oh crap, or yeah, I couldn't tell what that look on her face was all about.
she missed all the signs because when he went to go get the drinks, and before they even got back to the hotel, when the first guy went to go get the drinks, the dark hair guy went to go
Mhm.
get the drinks, he came back to her dancing with his friend. Well, what
Yes.
we now know is her friend. And the explanation was, well, in Italy, we don't mind. A dance is a dance. And
Like, really? Okay.
I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. I don't care which country you are. If
Yeah.
you dating, if you're dancing with a girl and you walk away to buy some drinks, she better be back there waiting for you when those
And
drinks.
that should be bro code, right?
Right. That's bro code. That's bro code all day, every day. So I was just like, oh yeah, this is gonna lead to something. This is gonna lead to something.
And had she not had her head in her phone as she was walking past, right?
She would have
The
seen.
cafe would have seen them together cackling and known like, oh, this is a setup, right? So
Yeah, it's funny. This reminds me of a story a friend of mine had, and I used to know in high school. His name was Marcello Di Giano. He was from Italy. He spoke with a heavy Italian accent, and he said, ironically, he said to me one day, he's like, Hakeem, we love American girls, and I said, really? It's like, well, why do you like American girls? He's like, man, when they come over, they love to party, and I'm like, oh, that's what it's all about. So I think there's this perception, and which she portrays well in this episode, that it's about a party.
right.
It's
I mean,
about a
that's what she wanted when she first got there, and her and Arabella were hanging out in the bed. You know you remember what she said, what she wanted to accomplish while there. So it's accomplished twice
in the same night.
one night.
She's efficient.
Oh my God. And so what's so funny about that is that if you recall, when they were getting ready to go out, Terry was very adamant about the type of man she's trying to meet, someone with substance, someone that's going to, stimulate her brain in quantum physics. So the irony of that happening, it was beautiful.
I think we saw her quantum physics. We saw the quantum physics.
That's pretty good, Huck.
EMC squared, or tube in this case, but she
Well said, my friend. Well said. So while this is happening with Terry, right? Arabella and Biagio are hanging out in the living room, right? And it's in this scene that Arabella does yet another line of coke. Okay,
yeah.
we find out Biagio doesn't drink, and sex gets initiated. But then Arabella remembers that she's on her period. Um, but then there's this bedroom scene that's super wild, and I appreciate Michaela Cole showing that level of detail. As disgusting as it was, it
I
was
would say
brilliant.
it was very candid.
Brilliant, right? Because it's relatable.
Wow, very relatable, but
It's
wow,
relatable. But wow, like I'm not even going to describe it. I think it's just worth watching and being shocked.
well, I think for rating purposes, I think we should just let you should watch this part
Right.
because it's very, like I said, candid. And
It's a great scene. It's a great scene. So, needless to say, they don't end up having sex. Instead, Biagio takes her to the beach, which was such a really pretty scene. And so the beach scene is the end scene, which kind of ties in the title of the episode nicely. Don't forget the sea, because they end up, by the sea.
I see, right?
Yeah, and I think, it's the most revealing scene of the whole episode. Biagio admits to Arabella that he's not proud of his job. So, the contradiction kind of comes, to fruition, because he also probably feels some kind of way about what he has to do. And the fact that his mother and sister both died from drug overdoses and he is still selling drugs struck me.
Well, like I said, it's a means to an end. It's not necessarily something you'd like to do. I remember not to compare movies, but I remember watching a movie with Russell Crowe, and he's one of the character essentially said, I like being a warrior, but I mean, no, he said I'm good at being a warrior, but I prefer to be a farmer. And what it is was he was really good at doing one thing, but his dream, his passion was the other, and they were far contrasting. Set that aside, Biagio's mom and sister died from drug overdose, and he was seeing the same path that Arabella's going down, so he's trying to caution her. And again, there's that bad boy, good guy thing that people like so much. Not just women, men like that bad girl, good girl thing too. So it's just sort of, it's like a sweet and sour.
Yes.
Contrasting, sweet and sour.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And I think that she throughout the series, you see that. You see the contrast in a bunch of characters.
True. And so he also reveals that he thinks Arabella is cool and tells her to stop the drugs.
Exactly.
Right? Which was kind of interesting. Well, don't sell them to me, but I get you need to make money, but don't tell me to stop the drugs if you're going to give me the drugs.
You're going to supply me, and then you're going to stop?
Like, I'm confused, Biagio. Pick a lane.
Pick a lane.
Yeah. So, when he says that, she kind of scoffs at him, like, what? Like, it tells him to chill out. And then his last words to her before the episode ends are, look, if you get in trouble one day, don't come to me crying. I thought that was such a brilliant way to end the episode, given what happens to her 3 months later.
Right. So it's so he was trying to, that was his precursor to seeing exactly where she was going. And again, it speaks to volumes about how out of control she is and how in control she thinks she is.
Right. That's a recipe for disaster, because the more in control you think you are, but then you're using all these external things to feed something or to I don't know, to heal something or to numb something. That's when things get really out of control. And I can't imagine how much further this is going to go in terms of loss of control, as they kind of continue to set up what happened to her, if that makes sense.
No, that's very true. She's definitely trying to quell some kind of fire that she feels in the pit of her soul, and I don't know exactly what it is. And again, this is the reason why I keep watching every week, because I'm trying to get to that point. I want to see what is it that's burning her, that she's trying to quell. What is she trying to
Yeah.
extinguish? And you know what I mean? She's not really speaking to anybody, and I don't know at this point. She's at all these slew of characters that she can confide in or talk to, but she hasn't really talked to anyone, even the police. Actually, I take that back. When she started to speak to the police, um, they hit a nerve, and then that made her emotionally break down. So that's the first inkling that there's actually something there, but we don't know what it is.
You bring up a good point. She is void of emotion. She has been void of emotion up until that moment
Right.
when
Okay.
she's speaking to the investigator. You're
Right.
absolutely right.
Yeah. See, and that's the thing that's killing me, because I'm a street psychologist. I love seeing this stuff. I'm like Columbo. So when I'm looking at this, I'm going, what is she thinking? How is she hiding it? She's just packing it on, and at some point she's going to burst, even with all the drugs she's taking. Now, which is ironic, because when she stacks those drugs, that means that no matter what she does, it keeps bubbling to the top. So she
Yeah.
has to keep going for that high, which is really, really, really dangerous.
I can't wait to see what the impetus of that level of destruction is. I hope that's revealed and not just kind of forgotten about, and it's just we're focusing on the present.
Yeah,
Because that's really going to help the audience understand her motivation when it comes to taking these drugs.
yeah, and the thing, see, and the weird thing about it is, from a psychological standpoint, is the frequency in which she takes them,
Yes.
and that's for me, that speaks of emotional, maybe some physical abuse.
Right.
I'm just guessing.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because that's like, it's suppressing. I mean, that of course you relive that memory over and over and over, and it becomes more vivid. And like I said, and like we mentioned several times through this show, she hits the wall and then she breaks, and she broke in the police department, and I'm afraid there's going to be an explosion, if you will.
Yeah. And if there isn't anything like abuse, then it's just she's just drawn to the high and how it makes her feel. Because that's also a thing, right? I don't know that you have to necessarily want to numb something, but once you get that first hit and it feels however it feels to you, then the continuous chase is all going back to feeling how you first felt. But
Yes, you
people,
making it, you making it sound like a jazz musician. This ain't heroin.
no, but Coke,
She's doing multiple drugs though. She's
Coke is
Molly, Coke.
addictive, right?
She's doing like several of these things. I've seen people, well, not seen, but I've heard of people doing, like I remember watching Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie, a lot of these jazz. I'm a big jazz fan too, and they did certain drugs, but they had the drug of choice, and
Yeah,
that's where they were, one, like you said, they were searching for maybe creativity, maybe they were searching for their next high, but
right.
some of them were just hiding very emotionally damaged
Yeah,
scenes from their life. So I don't know what it is. I'm just speculating. Again, I'm a street psychologist. Don't take my word for it, but that's how I see it. The reason why she's stacking, and she every time she bubbles, she stacks again, and I'm like, ugh, that's dangerous.
ooh, she's so tiny.
And what, she cracked the phone? Don't remember how she cracked the phone. Remember how the series begins? She doesn't know what happened to her, so there's that. So how far is this going to go? Are we going to find her in an alley? Not with a head buster, because she's already done that too.
That's already happened.
So I'm like, what's left?
Yeah, I'm excited to see how far Michaela Cole takes this in explaining who Arabella is and why that happened to her. Like, what role did she play in that happening to her?
And another thing I wanted to add, that I was just mulling over as we were talking, and probably before we got on, it, it's maybe it's the age, because I think they're just so just
Mm-hmm.
carefree. They don't have any fear whatsoever. I mean, they're like, I'm just gonna pop Molly and smoke weed, and I'm like, whoa, pump your brakes.
My pearls the entire time. You think I'm 80 the way I'm looking at this?
I
Like,
know. I was like, man, am I that old? Because I'm yo.
happening? Is this what kids are doing these days?
I was like, I think of myself as cool, but maybe I'm not because I'm
I guess
like,
we're not, Hawk. We're not that cool then. If
no,
that's
apparently I'm not. I'm an old geezer, man. Because I was
I'm
like,
okay with
whoa,
that. I'm okay with that.
yeah, I'm okay with
I'm
that.
okay
I'm
with
okay with that.
that. If that's the other side, I'm good over here.
Yeah, but I'm gonna go 25. This is a school zone, like I said, school
Yeah,
zone. 25. You doing 55? I'm doing 25.
that's funny, Hawk. So, I mean, episode 3 was awesome to watch. You might want to watch it, twice just to make sure you catch certain things because it was like the second or third time that I caught certain dialogue that I'd missed maybe the first time because I was, paying attention to the scene. So it's definitely one of those episodes where it's a good study. It's a good study. And really quickly, right after Biagio said what he said, Arabella kind of looks off into the sea with this real contemplative look. It's that same contemplative look that Terry had when she was looking out the window.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was kind of cool that they both had a moment of, was that smart for me to do? Or, kind of whether it was rethinking their actions or who knows. I
Yeah.
thought that was cool that they both had that moment separate of each other.
Yeah, a moment of pensiveness. I don't know what it was about, and I couldn't even guess. So I'm glad you said that because I didn't get anything from that. I didn't know what that was about.
Mm-hmm. I think,
But
him saying that to her triggered something.
I hope so.
Don't know what. Right. I hope so. Exactly.
I hope so because I'm like, ugh.
Yeah. So, any last words?
For all you kids out there that go abroad, wow, if this is how you have fun, let me know because I need to step my game up then.
No. Be careful.
Be
Please.
very careful.
For the love of God, women, we got to be more aware. We got to be more careful, aware of our surroundings and the people around us. Like I'm about to, start a PSA out here just for the sake of safety. My God, so many things could go wrong when you're not in control of your body, of your mind. My God. Yeah. Anyway, great job on episode 3. Thank you. Right. Thank you for tuning in. You can watch this video in our previous videos on the Blackfilm Facebook page. This video will also be available on the blackfilm.com website within a day or two. So definitely check us out. We will be back next Thursday, 7 p.m. with a recap of episode 4. Hawk, thank you.
Thank you, Elle.
And that is it.
Come check us out.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Good night.
All right.